Let's remove the wheel, 19mm socket, remove all 5 of your lug nuts. With this last one, the hubcap's going to want to come off, so take that off, of course, if you have steel wheels and if you have the hubcap. If not, don't worry about it. And remove the wheel. Sometimes they're stuck on like this, and if tapping them doesn't work, I'm going to grab a rubber mallet and hit it from the backside. But before I do that, I want to put on a lug nut for safety. That way the tire and wheel don't go flying off when I hit it. There we go. Remove your safety lug nut and remove the wheel. Right in there, you'll see a 10mm bolt. Let's remove that. And if you look in the lower right corner, you'll see a plastic push clip. Go ahead and remove this as well. Now there's supposed to be a 7mm screw right there in this bolt hole. Mine's missing. And then there's supposed to be a couple push clips there. But then I still have a 7mm bolt here, which I'm going to remove. That's great. Now you can pull this fender liner out. And if you sneak your hand behind there, you can't see it, but there's a 10mm bolt that holds the rest of this splash shield in. Take the bolt out, the shield should come off. Put the fender liner back so that we can work in this area. Now located right behind this splash shield is your water pump. And I'm going to want to break free these three 10mm bolts before the belt comes off. That way this pulley doesn't just spin on me. There we go. Now we can take the belt off. Now when you look at the belt right here, first of all, take note of how it's routed. I'll provide you with a diagram later when we put it on, but take a picture or take a mental note. And then with a 16mm socket, this is the tensioner bolt right here. Go ahead and pull it counterclockwise. That will release tension off of the belt. You can slip the belt off, and then you can bring your tool up and remove it off of the tensioner. And there we go. And then you can remove the belt. I like to just take it right off, that way it stops flopping around in my face as I'm trying to work. It'll be easy enough to put back on when the time comes. Now with the belt off, let's remove these bolts. And remove the pulley. Okay, it's kind of stuck on there, so I'll have to persuade it with a rubber mallet. There we go. Now with a collection bucket underneath, I'm going to break free the bolts that hold on the water pump. They're all 12mm headed bolts. And there's basically one on each corner. I'm actually going to leave the 2 bottom bolts in. That way the water pump doesn't come out too far and it doesn't make too much of a mess. It will make a mess, but this at least will control it. There's one last bolt all the way at the top. All right, ready? There it goes. I'll just let this drain for a little bit. Water pump is detached. Let's take these 2 bolts out. And now try to slowly wiggle it till it comes out of there. You can, if you need to, gently use a pry bar underneath. Be very careful when you do this. There we go. There's the water pump. And the reason it was kind of stuck is because of that little dowel pin at the top there. Now I just want to take a rag, clean up the surface. Typically I'd use a razor blade, but this surface is very clean actually, so all I'm going to do is just dry it off and get any debris out that may have gotten on here. And at this point, honestly, this is ready for reinstallation since the surface is so clean. So if the water pump that you have came with these dowel pins that are not installed into the water pump, you want to go ahead and put them where they belong on the engine block. One should go right here, one should go right here. I know you can't see it. This one for me is already on there because it never came off with the old water pump. This one came off with the water pump, which is fine. So I'm going to replace this one. And this will help you not just locate the water pump where it's supposed to go, but also it'll help you hold the gasket in place while you get your water pump on here. Let's get the water pump and slide it on. There we go. It's a good idea to have some bolts ready. That way, as soon as it goes in, you can line up the bolt holes. Well, I mean, they should already be lined up, but you can start in the bolts is I guess what I'm trying to say. Once you put the water pump on, it'll be kind of hard to see what you're doing, but you can feel for the bolts and the bolt holes. All right, so everything is on now. I'm gonna go ahead and tighten these up by hand since they're going in easily, and then we're gonna come back and torque them all. 18 foot-pounds is the torque for this water pump. I'm gonna go around one more time to double check them all. All right, those are all tight. Now take the pulley, slide it over the water pump, start in the 3 bolts that hold this on. Snug these up by hand, and then once the belt is on, I'm going to go ahead and fully tighten them with the belt holding the water pump in place. So this is good for now. Let's get the belt on. All right, so I'm going to start at the water pump. I'm going to put the belt over, and then underneath this idler pulley here, then over the power steering pump. From the power steering pump, I'm going to go underneath this idler, and then right up and over the alternator. Then I'm going to bring it underneath the AC compressor like this, trying to hold tension on it so it doesn't fall off of anywhere. And then bring it underneath the harmonic balancer, and then it can go over this tensioner. Now because I have a brand new tensioner, there's a locking pin there that holds the tension released for me, but I still have to get that pin out. This is now a 15mm socket. Put that on there, release tension, pull this pin out. There it is. And now slowly let go. And there you have it. The belt is on. You want to make sure that it's sitting in all the ribs properly. I'm going to run my hand across everywhere to ensure that it is not off. If it's off, you need to fix it. All right, this looks perfect. Let's continue. Take your 10mm wrench and tighten up these bolts. Just make them nice and snug. Okay. Double check them. Let's put this shield back on, line it up with that hidden bolt in there. I'll start in this bolt over here first. That way at least this can be held in place. I'm going to come back and tighten it in a minute. Let's put in the other bolt. And the other one is that hidden one in here that you can barely get to. Okay, let's tighten them both up. Get the wheel back on. And if you have hubcaps, go ahead and put them on now because the lug nuts are what hold the hubcaps in. And you have this little cutout here that has to line up with your valve stem. So line that up. Automatically your lug nuts will line up with the holes in the hubcaps. Put on all 5 of your lug nuts, snug them up, and torque them to 100 foot-pounds. Let's fill up the cooling system. Remove your radiator cap. And I have this spill-free funnel, which goes on here locks in tight so that you don't have to worry about overflowing and spilling everywhere. However, if you don't have that, you can just use a regular funnel. It's just that this one works a lot better. So I'm going to go ahead and install it. Let's fill this with coolant, manufacturer specified coolant, until it stops bubbling. Then we'll run the engine to fully bleed the system. At this point, it has stopped bubbling, as you can see. I have massaged the hoses a little bit. Usually that gets some extra air out. And at this point, we're going to go ahead and turn on the engine so that the water pump can circulate and push out any excess air that might still be stuck in the system. And when you run the car, you want to make sure your heat is all the way hot. Leave the blower on vent, that way you can feel the hot air. And then the blower motor, you can leave it on low. You don't have to max it out or anything, but you want to make sure that the AC is off also. Okay, so no AC, heat on. That way the heater core circulates the coolant. And as the car is running, you want to pay attention to this temperature gauge and make sure it does not climb above halfway. And if it does, that means it's overheating. You need to shut the car off, let it cool down, and try again, because it's most likely just a pocket of air somewhere. And once the car has ran and everything has cooled down, I'm going to cap this off. Go ahead and remove your funnel if you used one. I'm going to put the leftover in my overflow tank. Perfect. Make sure you don't go above the full line. You can see that right on the side here. Cap this off, take it for a road test.